As the police brace themselves for more riots today and in the coming days, the role social media has played is under the spotlight, with calls for the big tech giants to take action. But should access be limited by government police if riots are happening in a place? What would that even look like?
Well, the government could use what's called packet filtering. So that's when access to sites and specific content is blocked by internet service providers. But if they did that, it would be unprecedented here in the UK, with restrictions like this only seen in authoritarian countries like North Korea, Russia and China. France's President Macron raised the idea as something that it might consider last year in response to riots there, but it actually never materialised.
So is it time to consider doing that here? We're joined now by broadcaster Raya El Salehi, who thinks social media is vital to freedom of speech, and entrepreneur Anna Villete, who says a temporary shutdown could stop the spread of information. It might work.
I think so. I think we should stop it. It's only a temporary measure in order to limit the spread of inflammatory information, misinformation as well, across the United Kingdom at this point. And I think we should focus on keeping people safe and communities safe as well. So my point is just to stop it. And I think we considered that in 2011 when David Cameron was a Prime Minister. He did consider input to Parliament to at times when there's a need for it to occur. And as you mentioned before, France as well, last year, as recent as July last year, President Macron mentioned that we should potentially consider that, and for the protection of public health, you know.
Rare safety's got to come first, hasn't it? That's the argument.
We have seen horrific scenes on the streets of the country in the past week, and we, sadly, by the sounds of it, will continue to see that tonight. And I don't think the way that you clamp down on that is by clamping down on freedom of speech. You need to hear what people have to say, as much as you or I or most people will really dislike and find it distasteful. The way that you deal with this is not by shutting down conversation. You mentioned some of the countries that currently do this. Do we in the UK really want to follow in the example of North Korea? Is that the direction of travel that we think will clamp down on the sort of far-right extremism and violence that we've seen on the streets of the UK?
I mean,
absolutely not.
There's a broader point about social media and misinformation. Let's come to that in a second. But we're talking here about, if there's a particular incident happening, let's say that there is drones above Heathrow Airport potentially attempting to target planes. In those circumstances, you could imagine the security services, the police, kind of blocking the communication above Heathrow to stop people who are controlling the drones communicating with their drones.
That's a very different thing, because what you're talking about is potentially the safety of planes taking off and drones.
But they were setting fire to hotels at the weekend.
And the way that you deal with the sorts of reasons that has happened is not by clamping down on the awful things that we've heard people say and do. The way that you deal with that is by tackling misinformation and disinformation. And it's important to make the distinction between the two, because we've seen a lot spread on social media in the past week. But it's not just about people being misinformed. It's people willfully sharing incorrect information. How do we tackle that? Not by clamping down on it. We tackle that by journalists, by reputable news organisations sharing truths, by not allowing those sorts of misinformation and disinformation
But this Telegram app that's allowed the sharing within certain groups, and then it's been shared beyond that, of some 30-odd places targeted for riots across the UK today, utterly terrifying for the people that live there.
Yeah.
And just to make sure that they're safe, could there be an argument for just shutting that bit down?
Well, I think that misses the point that actually social media is a tool for us all to share information. So actually, I've seen lots shared on social media in recent days from groups who are terrified, from British Muslims who are really afraid about what the next 24 hours will mean for them and their families, and sharing really important messages of safety, of ways that they can avoid being in the direct route of some of these disgusting people who are taking to the streets of the UK and causing chaos. That information needs to be shared too. If you clamp down,
I think that won't. I'm not far from the point. I don't think it's going to be a catalyst of stopping it completely, but certainly we should consider stopping it, as at least limiting for a few days. And we can always rely
on the communities who want to share information about where
no,
to
but we can always rely on normal TV channels or TV news to obtain information from it. What happened to life of previous?
If you are a British Muslim right now in places where you know that these people, these far-right extremists, are going to be in your neighbourhood, you can't say to them, well, just watch TV and you'll find out where to go.
No, you can watch TV and find out from trusted and regulated TV channels what is actually going on. Because mostly, I would say, things that currently occurring on social media, the information provided, it's not accurate. Sometimes it's manipulated and people sometimes
and
exaggerated.
the way you tackle that is by having an open forum. The way you tackle that is not by clamping down on it.
We should be cautious and utilise social media. And if it's a necessity to stop it for a couple of days, so you think?
I suppose the argument is it's a slippery slope. That's what you're saying.
That's it. You're following in the footsteps of North Korea.
Have you felt that in a way it's ever been helpful to have social media as a tool to share positive messages?
Absolutely. I'll say yes, often is considered that. But actually, at this point, I think we should consider taking the measure quite serious. We want it to stop. We don't want things to escalate.
So you'd be comfortable living in a country that follows North Korea's path? You think that's the way that we should be going?
I think that is
extreme.
We are doing what we can do in order to ensure people are safe at this point. I think that should be our main focus at the moment. It's not a comparison with other countries, but what can we do now to resolve the situation?
A comparison with North Korea, would it not?
Stop celebrities, discussing things that they are unaware of or even inciting more violence.
But Anna said, use the word regulated.
Yes.
If you are on ITV, television, you can say what you like, but if you say something which is a lie or untrue, then we have to intervene and to say, no, that was wrong, because we're regulated by Ofcom. Yeah. If you take Twitter, which is a commercial organisation from which they potentially make huge amounts of money, I mean, there's free speech, and there is people saying things which are lies, that this killer was a migrant who came on a boat. Does social media have no responsibility to allow free speech, but then, as we would, to say, no, that is a lie and should be taken down?
That's a really important point. And there is freedom of speech, there is not freedom from consequences of what you say. And that's a really important point about regulation too. And
Which doesn't happen at the moment.
Which doesn't happen at the moment. But the online safety bill, we hope, will see a further crackdown on the sort of misinformation and disinformation that is currently spreading like wildfire on sites like X, formerly known as Twitter. And that's what we need to do to clamp down on this. You can't say whatever you like without any consequence, but there should be a forum where we can hear the sorts of views that I really don't like to hear, but we should be able to hear them and we should be able to tackle them, and we don't do that.
And we do hear that from news channels, don't we? We hear what we don't want to hear sometimes, and things that are quite upsetting. And we hear, but we can trust the information provided rather than relying on somebody in their bedroom just typing in whatever they feel like it, because they want to incite more violence and continue this madness.
There's absolutely an argument that you need to be able to regulate social media, and that is what's currently happening. But you don't close down conversation. You're not going to stop far-right extremism by telling people we won't listen to you.
We want to limit their influence. On individuals.
But this sort of action has existed in this country before. I mean, if you speak to any black or brown person who is over the age of 50, they will talk about experiencing this sort of thing when they were younger, and social media doesn't exist. So there's not a cause and effect here. It's just an opportunity to amplify this message, and the way that you tackle that is by having an open...
Well, thank you both of you for a good discussion this morning.
That debate will be happening in every home, but actually also in every government department. Trying to find this balance between free speech and how you can actually stop this information.
And how you can keep people safe in the moment as well.
Important.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.